The Mississippi Black FedEx delivery driver who says two white men shot and chased him has been fired. According to D'Monterrio Gibson's attorney, Carlos Moore, FedEx fired his client because he did not accept a part-time, non-courier job with the company offered in mid-July. Gibson provided RMU with a copy of the email informing Gibson of his termination. Your employment with FedEx was terminated effective July 26, 2023. Attempts have been made to deliver your letter and accompanying documents on July 31, 2023, and delivery will be reattempted today. In order to make sure you have received this communication, I have attached a copy to the mail. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have. Moore released this statement. FedEx has shown its true colors. It has never cared about my client's Black life. How could any employer be so insensitive and tone deaf and fire a dedicated employee after he almost lost his life working for the company? I look forward to holding FedEx accountable in a court of law for intentional infliction of emotional distress for sending Mr. Gibson back to the same very dangerous route the very next day after the attack by the cases. It was Thursday that Judge David Strong declared a mistrial against the father and son, Brandon and Gregory Charles' case, because of errors by Brookhaven Police Department Detective Vincent Fernando, who admitted under oath that he did not give prosecutors or defense attorneys a videotaped statement police had taken from the victim. Now, the cases, they're charged with attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy, and shooting into Gibson's vehicle while he was simply making deliveries. Luckily, Gibson was not physically harmed in the incident. I'm joined by my two panelists, but we have one more panelist, Jesse Hamilton McCoy, clinical professor of law, supervising attorney for the Duke Law Civil Justice Clinic. I tell you, this is something a lot of legalese, I want to kind of back into it because the mistrial was really important in this. And this doesn't mean that these defendants can't go to trial again. They probably will. But you have a mistrial and it is an interruption of the process. Can you explain a little bit about what a mistrial actually means and the fact that this mistrial had everything to do with the fact that evidence, this time a videotape, was not turned over to all of the parties? And that was for Jesse.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. So typically a mistrial occurs when there is some item of trial that did not occur in an appropriate fashion. And in this case, it sounds like the prosecutor did not turn over a piece of evidence that was previously demanded. Typically with a mistrial, if prejudice is not attached, there'll be an opportunity to pursue once again. However, it does bode some concern with the fact that the prosecutor didn't turn over a document or an item that was requested. This is Mississippi. This is a small town in Mississippi.
Right.
I'm not really sure what the relationships there may be, but there are always things to consider and issues to be concerned about whenever you see situations where prosecutors aren't fulfilling their due diligence.
Right. And in this case, actually, it was the police, but really at the same time, you have attorneys that represent the police. And he took the stand, this officer, and said, I didn't turn over a videotape. You know, a lot of people are saying, how strategic, how timely that this happened at this particular time. And I'm wondering, have you been hearing the same, Jesse, in terms of, was this something to really throw the case? Because it seems like something as simple as a videotape, which is very basic in terms of evidence that one needs to kind of hand over during discovery. It seems like something everybody would know about. Could this have been something a little more strategic and underhanded?
It could be. I mean, there's no real way of knowing kind of what the viewpoint is. I will say just usually because we are dealing with a small town in Mississippi, I will always be concerned when the process doesn't work the way that it is designed to work. However, you know, as long as prejudice has not attached, there hasn't necessarily been evidence presented yet that will bar the inability for the prosecutor to bring the case once again.
So, you know, all eyes are on this, Dr. Brown, especially because of the fact that here's a young man who was shot at. He took a non-courier position. They would not let him work from home. So then they fired him. Certainly smells like a lawsuit to me. Wanted your thoughts on that, Dr. Brown?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a miscarriage of justice. the way that the police just failed to turn over key evidence. It is a small town, like was said, and so we can't help but think that there has to be some sort of alternative motive around why that evidence wasn't given up by the police. And then just the fact that when FedEx fires Mr. Gibson, I truly do believe that with the context of the case and all of that stuff and the reason why they fired him, I found it to be completely inappropriate. I think that I hope that in his civil suit towards FedEx, he ends up being awarded a heavy sum. I think this is, I think if anything is going to be delivered, I hope justice gets delivered.
Randy, it seems to me like FedEx, they need to watch themselves because they fired someone who was fired at by a gun, did not allow him to work from home. This lawsuit, in terms of intentional infliction of emotional distress that is being threatened, it actually seems, I would imagine that FedEx wouldn't be too surprised, but it is surprising that they would even go to through this process and not keep this young man employed at the very least.
Very bad PR decision. I'm assuming that someone at a lower rank based in that area of the country made this decision, and it was not, people didn't pay attention. Now that it is public, I promise you that at the corporate offices, and I believe in Tennessee, are like, oh my goodness, because this is a PR nightmare, which I don't think any company would want this hanging over their heads. What it says to me, though, that is worthy of consideration, it's what they expect of Black people in this country. You know, you hear about hostile workplaces, and I've seen many people that are given, leaves of absences for, name calling or things like this. But a Black man is expected to be shot at, and they didn't just shoot at him. I mean, they cornered him where he could not move. They came out, he parked his truck in a way that this gentleman could not move. They trapped him and then started shooting at him, right? Which has got to be extraordinarily traumatic. But it's like Black people are not allowed to experience the full range of emotions. Not like that this gentleman is not allowed to be fearful and have trauma and need therapy and need time off from work. He is expected, like many other Black people day after day, when we receive, much less, but, microaggressions, to go back to work and to smile and act as if we are okay. And that is not okay whatsoever.
Yeah, Randy, it's interesting that you mentioned all those facts. And I will add to that he was in a UPS uniform. I'm a FedEx uniform. The car wasn't FedEx, but that prompted these two men to get out guns and go after them. And, I'm just speaking to what you're saying about the fear that people have automatically of Black men, Black people often, when they are doing their job or having a picnic or just being whoever they are in whatever setting they are in.
Right. And the van had FedEx on three sides of it. So it wasn't as if it was just a white anonymous van. It did say FedEx on three areas in the van, sides of the van. So they very much knew this was a FedEx delivery person, and I believe went hunting, literally for the fun of it, from a place of anger, and that they would get off by something that I believe is a purposeful cover-up. I mean, this is what someone's job is to do, right? That this is the job, is to hand over evidence. So I cannot believe that this case, they forgot something so major, right? But yeah, this FedEx, I will tell you this, I don't know what's going to happen in the criminal case, but I guarantee you FedEx is going to have to write a ticket.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I want to ask our professor of law here from Duke, Jesse, you give this fact pattern to someone on an exam. What is the outcome that you're expecting your students to write about that's going to be the right answer in terms of FedEx being responsible for intentional infliction of emotional distress here?
Well, the true result from this most likely will be a confidential settlement on the part of FedEx, because they're going to try to avoid the PR nightmare. It's blatantly obvious that this was a move that was very insensitive. On top of that, if it's true what his attorney says, that they scheduled him for the exact same route, in which his life was just put in jeopardy, that is the very definition of what intentional infliction of emotional distress is. So I would guess that somebody sitting on high at FedEx is going to triage this situation and provide a financial settlement that will be sufficient and ask for confidentiality and signing the release.
Yeah, I would say that they better be on their P's and Q's. Dr. Brown, what is your take on all of this, especially the part, that this is a young man who they wouldn't give him his job back, not even at home, when a lot of people are still at home post-COVID. He could have done something at home, is my guess.
Yeah, this shows that when it comes to particularly Black working class people, a lot of these companies feel like their lives are expendable. And if I was working for FedEx, I might even file my own suit. I'm traumatized.
Right.
Let's go through this, and then you're gonna then put me on that route? No, I think I think some other suits would come after that. And so I do think that I agree. FedEx misstepped, to say the least, in this. PR wise, they're going to take a hit, a major hit. And so I do, my heart and my concern really does go out for Mr. Gibson and the other FedEx workers and other mail carriers for that matter. We've seen this happen a number of times where they're in a position where they're in someone's private property or on someone's private property just doing their job, and people are shooting at these people, cornering them, questioning them in an aggressive manner. And these are people that are just doing their job.
Jesse, I think that Dr. Brown brings up a very important point, in that if I'm a FedEx worker and you're allowing this to happen to one of my co-workers, I'm feeling traumatized. I'm feeling like I'm a part of that experience because I could be next. And if I am next, I will not have a secure feeling that FedEx, you are going to protect me, or that you're going to protect my financial security, that you may ultimately fire me. And when we talk about that and we look at all of the people that could potentially really be a part of this case, it really is more than just about this one plaintiff.
Certainly. Now, of course, FedEx is going to have a voice in this too, and they're going to say, well, it wasn't our intent to cause harm or intentional infliction of emotional distress to everyone collectively, but some states do have an additional tort called negligent infliction of emotional distress.
That's right.
And perhaps that is the catch-all where other people will be able to advance claims.
Randy, I wanted to talk to you just about FedEx, its responsibility. You talked about this is a terrible PR move. What would have been the right move on FedEx's part?
One, keep him employed. Ask him how you could provide services. Say that, you as a company care about your employees and you're going to provide therapy to this valued employee for however long he needs it. You want to show that you care about your employees. And ensure, he had to have been covered through insurance. So to ensure he's getting the therapy he needs and he has the time to recover, because a mental injury, trauma can be just as detrimental to someone as a physical injury. So they should have provided care for their employee, without a doubt. And what I would do as well, everyone mentions a good point, and to send a message out to all of your employees on what you're going to do to ensure that they're as safe as possible. Because I would feel shaken as well, like, oh my goodness.
Right.
I didn't know that I was putting my life at harm because I'm delivering somebody's, air fryer or whatever is being delivered. And so absolutely, they need to ensure that they make their other employees feel safe on the job.
And that is the takeaway. It seems to be a very strong case that this young man has against FedEx, and he's already in a case causing more infliction of emotional distress on top of the case that was determined to be a mistrial. Companies do need to understand that what happens to one employee, you have to make other employees feel good about who they are in the workspace, because it might be them next.